You're about to enter the Atomic Voodoo Lounge, New Stanton's one and only surreal dive bar, bringing you beauty and magic and terahertz tragic. I'm Maxwell Vegas, writer, poet, musician, and author of the soon-to-be-published novel, New Stanton. Descend with me into the static buzz of late-night radio, where words and music swirl through neon dreams and drift like cigarette smoke out over dried-up prehistoric seas. On tonight's episode of the Atomic Voodoo Lounge, we're going to do things a little bit differently. This will be both an audio and a video podcast. I will be talking with Eric Williamson, the mastermind behind the Miscreant Anthology. Eric has really done something fantastic here with the whole idea behind the Miscreant Anthology and the Kickstarter campaign. He's brought together over 175 creators, 700 pages of comics, art, fiction, poetry, and more. This thing is born out of the zine culture, and it's built to last forever. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Hey, I'm Maxwell Vegas, and this is Eric Williamson from his Miscreant Anthology Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, that's right.
Campaign is a good word, right?
Sure, yeah. It's my campaign lair.
Yeah, right. How about just shoot us like your quickest pitch for the whole thing?
Well, how about I do my slowest pitch for the whole thing instead?
That works for me.
So the Miscreant Anthology is just a really incredible collaboration of true indie underground talent. We currently have on board over 175 indie creators across all genres, all domains. So you've got comic book creators, you've got artists, you've got authors of flash fiction and essays and scripts and stories, you've got poets, you've got fine artists, you have just a wide, diverse cast of true indie underground talent, all sort of coming together into one massive collective. And that's the Miscreant Anthology, which currently is sitting over 700 pages. This is a colossal, a monumental achievement of sort of
like a
indie collaboration. It really is. I mean, it's an artifact at this point. And right now we have a Kickstarter to support it and to allow readers to get their hands on some really cool versions of it. We have of course, a traditional trade paperback sort of version. We have a deluxe sort of hardcover version that is actually one of my favorites. There's digital versions for those people too that just like to stay in that format and can't bear the weight of a 5-pound book on their lap. And then there's also a really cool hand-bound sort of custom leather version that's being created individually one by one by our bookbinder, Emmeline Cray, who's based in Tucson, Arizona, just south of me, who is creating just a truly legendary sort of experience for those true collectors,
right?
The people that want to have the epitome of indie DIY, hands-on, custom, hand-built from scratch, stitched, put together experience. That's the one I'm certainly going to be coveting myself.
Well, yeah, it looks awesome. It really does.
It really does. And this picture that you're showing on the screen actually is a mock-up prototype that Emmeline actually built before we even knew that this project was going to be as colossal as it was. At the time, I think conceptually, Emmeline built this book based on a 400-page book. So now, since we're sitting at over 700 pages, just imagine that spine about twice as thick. And but it'll truly be a relic, as it's called here, this hand-bound leather edition. And Emmeline's done work for me and Miscreant Media, my imprint, in the past on a sci-fi cosmic horror project that I released last year called When We Were the Voyage. And we did some really cool full-on wraparound leather versions of my graphic novel. I mean, with like riveting and cast iron keys and just imprinted metallic foil into the leather embossing. Emmeline actually hand tore every single page of this 300-page graphic novel by hand, burnt the edges like with flame, and then like did like a really cool watercolor mask treatment on the pages to kind of give them this dirty Necronomicon sort of feel.
Yeah, right.
And it is literally just a work of art.
Yeah, it sounds like an actual relic, which, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and the price point is a reflection of, you know, this particular reward tier comes in at 500, and there are only going to be a total of 10 available because Emmeline literally puts each one together by hand.
Wow.
And what's really cool is on my Instagram, if you go back a little ways in my stories, you'll actually see there's some videos. Emmeline will take a lot of videos of the production process, which is really cool. You can see your book being made. And you can see the stages that Emmeline went through putting together my previous book. And so I knew going into this project that we wanted to provide this type of experience for those folks that really want to support, you know, this project at that tier.
Right.
But then again, one of the things, Max, that I've said since the beginning of this is there really is a reward tier for everyone.
Right.
From the $20 digital version to the paperback version to the hardcover version.
So yeah, I mean, like, honestly,
you got all the formats covered, basically.
Yeah, it does seem that way. So this is all black and white, right?
All black and white. And that really stems from the indie zine roots of Miscreant.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to. So, like, number one, how does a project like this just come into your head? Number two, who is it intended, like, who, the intended audience? I mean, you're obviously got a niche going here. You know, people that you know would be interested in this. So can you like kind of fill us in on that a little bit?
I mean, so the first part of your question was, where did this come from, right?
Right.
What was the sort of catalyst for the Miscreant anthology? And Miscreant as a brand sort of encapsulates everything that me, Eric Williamson, as a creator is. The Miscreant Media, which is my website. Miscreant, that person that is a rapscallion, a truant, someone that's just outside of the norm, right? Somebody that pushes the boundaries, is an outlaw, is a rebel, doesn't obey authority, is willing to challenge the norms. And so that Miscreant has sort of been my identity, and for years now. But it all started with the very first zine I ever published, which was called just Miscreant. And that came out about 5 years now ago. And it was a 16-page small zine with my creative writing and poetry combined with my friend's sort of macabre art. And it was really just a thought experiment of combining sort of poetry and dark art and comics and narrative storytelling in just a little rag, right? That we sold for $2. And it did well. It sold out. We did another print run of 100, sold out. And we did a nicer version, sold out. We did a metallic cover version, sold out. And the idea, not that I'm proud per se that it sold out, but it showed to me, it proved to me that that's not the point of my story. That proved to me that there was an appetite for sort of strange, unusual pairings of poetry and comic and dark art, fine art, eclectic font treatments, and just cool graphic design. Like just something that really didn't have a clean, clear lane, right?
Right.
Something
no, exactly.
that unique and innovative by design, but also sort of spoke to the creative talent that was behind the project. And so that had a life of its own, a time in the sun, and it came and passed. And it was a great experiment and a great opportunity for me to sort of stretch my chops and get into that space, which was, as a creator and as a writer, it really allowed me to overcome one of my biggest hurdles, which was just fear of putting myself out there.
Yeah, that is a big fear.
Yeah, fear of can I accomplish something that I set my mind to do?
Right.
And subsequently, then over the course of the last 5 years, Miscreant was the catalyst that gave me the creative fuel and fire to continue with a lot of other projects that I've had tabled for years: poetry, chapbooks, novels, graphic novels, comic books. And I will always be grateful to that first Miscreant project for being really the cattle prod that moved me and got me going.
No, I know that. I know that feeling.
Fast forward, Max, 5 years now, Miscreant sitting on my shelf, one of the few copies I have left, was calling my name. It was saying, "You're not done with me yet, Eric." And I pulled it out and I was flipping through it and I thought to myself, God, I loved this project so much. And over the course of the last 5 years, I loved all the collaborations I've done on other types of anthologies, whether they're comics or artists that I've brought on board other projects. And I thought Miscreant, being such a core part of my identity, just needed an evolution. And that evolution was simply telling me it needed to invite you. It needed to open its arms and embrace as many creators and see what it could be. So I thought, almost on a lark, I was like, well, let me put a call for submissions up. I've got some few creator friends. They'll probably want to jump on board. That's great. Maybe we'd get a handful and we could produce like a nice little perfect bound graphic novel.
Yeah.
Right? No high expectations of like vast yields of creators, just something kind of small and fun. Well, I put that call to submission up on my website and put some social posts and let people know that this is what I'm looking for. Sort of no holds barred, no guardrails, all genres accepted, all creative types sort of accepted, and just let the floodgates go. And that's exactly what happened. We got flooded.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see so many creators like yourself come forward out of the woodwork, who I had never known, but who had, through word of mouth and social, had seen the call for submissions, had the idea of this anthology that allows you to create, express, and share without fear of failure, that will not be a roadblock to your performance, right? That would allow amateurs, professionals, first-time creators, all of you are accepted to apply. And I think it resonated with folks, and we just got some really incredible, talented indie creators that just submitted across the spectrum.
Yeah, I think
So many entries.
in a lot of ways,
And the anthology, it just grew.
Yeah, it just keeps growing. But I was kind of late to the game in the fact that, and you were talking about networking and whatnot, but Gabe Osley talked to me and he's like, "Oh, did you see this?" And I'm like, "No." And that's how he alerted me to it. And then through the, we contacted you and whatnot, but that was close to the very end. But I think, like for me, a lot of this is kind of nostalgic in a good way. It takes me back to like the 80s, which, okay. But it takes me back there where like these things people made them, photocopied them, there was like with the hardcore scene and the punk scene, there was a lot of this kind of stuff going around, like the back of Thrasher magazine kind of stuff. So, it was really like a no holds barred kind of atmosphere. And the way everything is today is almost the opposite of that. If you want to be quote unquote traditionally published, traditionally accepted, all they really want is rehash stuff they can sell and maybe slap a plastic, makeover on it. People are not, at least in my humble estimation and my experience, because I've been through it, people are not looking for fresh voices, even though they say they are. They're not looking for different perspectives, even though they say they are. I mean, those are like kind of the catchwords, but really all they're worried about is, can this thing be sold? And and it creates a lot of number one, it creates a lot of disappointment in people just in general. And it creates this kind of, backlash where this kind of project is like, yeah, you know what? Who says what's important and what's not? We can say what's important for us. And, that's why I really kind of appreciate this project and really kind of feel kindred to it, as something that, like you said, outside the periphery, we finally get a voice, get our stuff in there. And for a lot of people that are just starting out, even like with your little zine that you were talking about at the very beginning, that little push often is what people need. And, and it's hard to get. It's really difficult to get unless you're just lucky and, but there's so many people out there that have so much good stuff, musicians, writers, poets, all these people. And it's hard to get a voice, especially now. So I really applaud this effort. I really think it's something, how do you see this? Do you see this continuing?
Ideally, I think that there is a proven appetite for this, and I think everything that you just said resonates on so many levels. In fact, I was just jotting down a couple notes from what you said, because you hit on a lot of these sort of heart points for me that are important behind the essence of this project, the spirit of this project, which isn't measured by some capitalistic success metric. And I love that. And that's why specifically with this anthology, it is a creator-owned, creator profit share driven initiative, which any other anthology that's just trying to take all of that prepackaged stuff you mentioned, all that plastic, they're just trying to wrap it in something that can sell so that they can pad their bottom line. Publishers are going to take their sort of 90% off the top, and the creator is going to be left with crumbs. Maybe if they're lucky, they get a copy of the book, and then it's like, see you later. Right?
Yeah.
And so the whole ideology behind this is that as a publisher myself, there's no publisher cut. I'm a creator just like you, Max. I get as much a share of this as you do. Like, that idea repulses traditional publishers, right? That they want nothing to do with a model that benefits creators, that rewards creators, that finds genuine new voices and new talent that haven't been sort of monetized and siphoned and churned through their profit funnels. That's not the spirit of this.
Right.
As long as we cover the cost to print the books, I want to print the books.
Right.
That's it.
No, that's it. That's it's
put
depressing.
That work.
Yeah.
I want to put that work into other people's hands. This isn't a nepotistic, gate-kept project.
Yeah.
This is true.
Is it. Yeah.
This is true, and I put quotes in that because you can't emphasize that enough. Independent self-publishing via a collective versus just an individual. And I just think that that's raw and it's real, and that also allows me to do whatever the fuck I want. Excuse my, I don't know, to do whatever the hell I want. I don't have to. I'm not beholden to anybody. So. Right. I can invite anybody to the table, no matter how raw it is or how reckless it is. It doesn't matter.
And it's funny how empowering that is to the people, but also to you, right? It's
well, absolutely. And also, I get to honor the creators individually. And it's really cool because what happens from that abrasion between pro, first timer, indie, amateur, whatever, is what happens from that abrasion is it sparks fire. It creates an elevation between both pieces. You
definitely.
Read some beautiful, tender, poetic piece, and then suddenly you turn the page and you're blasted in the face with some hardcore death metal visage, and then you turn the page and you jump into a sci-fi comic, and then you turn the page and you jump into a slice of life crime noir script. It's just so diverse and it's eclectic, it's unique. You don't know what you're getting, and that chaos is gorgeous. It's beautiful, and because of that, all the artists are elevated in the experience because of that abrasion, because of that intersection of talent.
Oh, sure. I think the power is in
and
that.
Everything homogenized, right? And flattened to be safe.
Right. Well, you walk into any major bookstore and you see, you can just see it. Like, you don't even have to read one word. You just look, and it's like, they all look basically the same. It's like, where is the interesting stuff? Where's
I'm
the
a big sci-fi fantasy reader. Right now, I was in Barnes & Noble the other day, right? It's the closest bookstore to me. I prefer going to smaller local indie stores when possible. And I looked at the sci-fi fiction section. Every fucking book cover looked identical.
Yeah.
It just looked like cookie cutter bullshit on every single row. And it was so gross. And there was no differentiation. There was no personality. It was just all corporate speak.
Yeah.
Grossness. And it was repugnant to me, especially having come off the trails of working on Miscreant and really getting into this headspace. One of the things you mentioned too that I want to touch on, because it spoke to a heart point of mine, was going back to those old days, the Thrasher Mag, the Mad Magazine, just those old rags. Like, I'm a child of the 80s as well, so when I think about even Miscreant, the original version 5 years ago, Origin, the origin goes back 30 years before that, when I was 10 years old, and my buddy and I, we wanted to copy Mad Magazine. We created our own magazine. We called it Dumb Magazine because, we're smart 10-year-olds.
Yeah, why not?
We had Spy versus Spy in the back. We had all those cool black and white comics, and we would draw them, and then we took them down to Circle K, and we would get them Xerox. And we stapled them, and we went door to door and tried to sell them. And we actually sold one to this old lady for like a dime or a quarter, I forget. And she probably just wanted us to get off her property. But it was like, wow, this is so cool. But it was like the spirit of just creating raw and sort of just reckless and
there's a youthful element. But it really is.
It was motivated by like that Thrasher punk rock sort of.
I mean, I could still feel
DIY.
the actual, like, it was like newsprint paper. It was like the cheapest
really
paper
pulpy.
they could have possibly, got their hands on. And
Now that paper
Thanks,
actually costs ridiculous amount to print on.
Yeah.
If you want to get your comic printed on newsprint, it's actually more expensive than on silk gloss, which is crazy. But I mean, I really love the diversity of the project. And so to answer your second part of your very first question was about the audience. Who do I think that this book is for? I don't really know. Like, I don't have a demographic profile of my book user.
Right like now.
Who's going to purchase this book? Is it going to be men between 18 and 25 are the primary demographic who like comic books? Yeah, that might be one demographic. But what I've said is, if you're coming to this book because you love comic books and you heard that this was an anthology with comics in it, you will get your fill.
Right.
But what you're also going to get is all the other stuff you didn't know that you are about to fall in love with.
Right.
Right.
And that's where the corporate model goes wrong. This big corporations and the overarching megalith of the publishing industry, they want all that information. They want you to come to them with, oh, this is exactly who this book is for. And my thing is, when you write a book, it's for anybody that wants it. They just don't know that it's there. It's this, and like you're saying, this is an introduction to show people what is there, because they're not going to find it going to your, basic Barnes and Noble, that kind of stuff. You're not going to, and if you do, you got to search for it, really. But but they just want everything wrapped up so well that it's like all of the creative love and fire is just wrung out of it. It's just not there anymore. So I really, it really does resonate with me. Now, here's the other question.
Well, you bring up a good point. Let me jump in before you ask that next question. While I still have that same thought in my brain.
Yeah, no, I get it. Believe me, they go fast.
Yeah, I did a post of maybe a week ago on social to promote Miscreant, and specifically, my thought was aligned to what you just said, was that this book will expose you to your next favorite whatever, your next favorite artist, your next favorite comic creator, your next favorite author, but your next favorite poet. And the catalyst for that was I was thinking one day, like, where does my favorite writers and comic artists and come from? Right? They were all unknown creators at one point. The greats, the Van Goghs, the Frida Kahlos, right? Mm-hmm. The Walt Whitmans, the Kirby, Eisner, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Ursula Le Guin, like the names go on and on. All the greats, they all started somewhere. They were all unknowns. They were all nobodies at one point. So Miscreant Anthology could very well be that book that has your next favorite author, comic creator, artist. It could also be the tome, this artifact, that has the next great in it. The next, Sylvia Plath, the next Emily Dickinson could be in Miscreant. And we just don't know them yet. And I love that.
Exactly. That's and it's that would make your big relic version all the sweeter. It would be like, this is where it started, or that kind of stuff. And but like,
and it might be, like you said, it might be that fear of the fear of getting started, right? It might be that person that finally decided to dust off that writing or dust off that pinup and submit it to Miscreant, because the promise is that we are looking for indie creators that are willing to take those risks and to share with the world and be a part of this, this could be the catalyst for them that actually gets that ball rolling down the hill. And I really love that about this project. Now, we did receive 600 plus creator entries. And,
well, that's what I wanted to get to in this next question. So when you're putting, and we can all say, it's great to open it up and all of that, but there's got to be some editorial guidelines that you're following, or some vision of what's too peripheral or what's, too. So can you fill us in on that?
I mean, all of that becomes very subjective, right? Because
it definitely is.
And as the editor of this book, which I've been saying, this isn't my book that you're a part of. This is your book that I'm fortunate to be able to sort of edit and put my arms around and help produce. So when the criteria at the beginning of this project was just a handful of friends, that wasn't an issue.
Right.
When the submissions became the first 100, then the next 100, and then I had 300 individual entries, and because I was allowing people to submit up to 5 things,
that was
per creator, 500 creators times 5. It got to be a lot, and I was like really clear early that I needed to put some sort of guidelines together for myself, because as much as I would want to produce a 5,000 page book with everything that was ever submitted in it, that wasn't realistic. And so I had to kind of, for each of the different modalities, whether it was poetry or comic book, I had to put together some guidelines and rules just for myself, so I wouldn't go insane. And also, I was able to curate the content because I could see holistically how this book was coming together. And I was clearly looking for work that showed craftsmanship. I wasn't looking for your diary entry, right? Even though I received submissions that felt like that.
Right, yeah.
Whatever the domain was, and are certainly honored forms of creative output. But where it became really important for me was to sort of differentiate what was craft and what also really felt like it deserved a spot in the book, because it was bringing something completely unique to the table. Because what ultimately I think is going to make this successful in the reader's hand is that they feel like they're getting unique perspectives and unique insights and unique voices. So anything that sort of bubbled to the surface from that, got sort of a green check mark.
Yeah.
Then you'll invariably get submissions that are sort of like safe and just feel like, I don't know, people will get a twist in their gut when they read this at this point in time. And but ultimately all judging criteria of being editor is very subjective, but I did want to really showcase a large offering. And that's why the book grew, Max. That's why it went from 100 creators and then 125, then 150 and 175, because there were submissions that clearly said they need to be a part of the book. So I just needed to expand the book.
Yeah. So that makes total sense. Did you have help in reading? Did you have other people helping you out with all that, or you did it all yourself?
Nope. Yeah. Sadly, I've learned some valuable lessons this go around. There's no team behind this closet door. Yeah. There's no sweatshop back there of editors, reviewers, graphic designers, or anything. It has been a pure labor of love over these last few months from me, reading, reviewing, replying, communicating with everybody. Yeah. It's been a lot of work, but very rewarding at the same time, because I've been exposed to talent that, like yourself, that I didn't know from Adam 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. And that's awesome.
Yeah, it really is a nice way of even I'm just the pictures of all the different artists and writers. It's you feel, number one, part of a community, but also it's like, hey, I wonder, down the line you might be working with some of these people, or there might, like you were saying, that kind of friction or that juxtaposition. You might, a writer and an artist might be like, hey, maybe we can do something together. And that's kind of where Gabe Osley and I kind of, we were in the same MFA program, but I was looking for somebody to do a graphic novel version of my novel and somebody to work with. And
awesome.
It's tough. It's tough, like, for me, I didn't know where to go to find that. It was just pure luck. I met him. I would look at things online and different, but you're dealing with people you don't know. You don't, you don't want to lose control of things. It's very kind of like perilous, to be left there and not really know exactly, am I making the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? And but just having this kind of like library of people that you are kind of working with, even though you're not necessarily working with them, is comforting, number one. And it's also, it can be very valuable to people down the line as far as, finding people that they kind of vibe with. That's the other thing. And even like you were saying, when you're looking for a particular kind of, like for my podcast, when I'm looking for a particular kind of vibe, I don't, I kind of have general guidelines, but and somebody sends you something and it's like, well, I know that doesn't fit, but then you get other things and you're like, yeah, that kind of does. It is very subjective. But it's, and because I have been on that end all the time. You don't want to be just saying no to everybody, but you got to have something, or, there's got to be this line somewhere that you kind of, either find your way with or lose your way with, one way or another. But it's I could see where that'd be very 500. You're talking about all these people. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every part of this project, I'll be honest, hasn't been all rainbows and butterflies and roses. I mean, there's parts that when you're just dealing with that quantity of people, there's people that take things personal and take it raw. While I've tried to be sort of neutral and sort of compassionate the whole way, when a couple of rejection letters were met with like, oh, well, screw you kind of thing. And it was like, oh, okay, well, good selection.
Yeah.
Like that, if you have that sort of attitude, then you're probably not the type of person I would want to collaborate with anyways. You have to be able to understand that what we're trying to do here is for the betterment of the entire indie community, for everybody that's involved. It's not there's no single solitary shining star. Right. That's why in everything, I'm not pushing one particular artist. Everything, when I communicate out to the group or in social, I try to say, like if I'm sharing a featured comic in a post or, a featured piece of art, I just say, this is random. There's no hero, like, there's no title, like lead artist, lead writer that's supposed to sell the movie poster version of this, right?
Exactly.
Like, it is about everyone, whether you do have a massive catalog of books or this is the very first thing you've ever published in your life. To me, it's an equal playing field. And I love that about this project. There is no preferential treatment. Nobody is getting on board because some sort of nepotistic ties.
Right.
Like, it is purely talent, follow the protocol, submit, it gets accepted, you're in. Whether you're my friend or not, I had to play by the same rules for everyone.
Sure.
In order to make it fair And that way I sleep good at night. And I know that when I put this project out, it is the best version of itself that it can be.
Right.
And that is an honorable way of doing it, but it can ruffle some feathers, and that's fine.
Yeah, but feathers get easily ruffled for some people. But
I mean, nowadays, yeah, so tremendously easy, right? But yeah. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about this is watching what you said happen, which is seeing an exchange between one artist and one poet. Mm-hmm. And then in the comments of something, right? Or they'll say something to me offline, and then that branch off and go have its own little relationship, right?
Yeah.
I actually know from this project already a few pairings that have happened of people who have met through this project, through the comments, through social,
right? Yeah,
through talking about the anthology, that have gone off and are now having talks about a project with amongst themselves, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
And here's one thing that's a really cool story. So one of the creators in the book, Tova Shafran, shout out to her, and Kylie Basenko, who is a artist in Australia. So Kylie is an artist in Australia, and she wanted to get some of her art into the swag bag that we did for the early birds Kickstarter campaign, which was kind of like just a cool thing to throw a bunch of extra bonus content in. She was like, I really would love to do that. And I was like, I don't want anybody spending money on this project. And I don't want you mailing me your art from Australia. It's going to cost you like $40. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, that's a real bummer. And so Tova stepped forward and she was like, send me the art and I will print it for you because I'm in the States. So they went off, paired together, and now Tova's helping Kylie print her art in the States so that she can get it to me for the swag bag for our readers. Like that whole mentality, right? Of these creators stepping up to help each other, to help the anthology, to give the readers free stuff. Like all that doesn't happen. Like it just doesn't happen.
No. One
person helping another so that they can print free stuff to give to the readers, like that's just cool. And that little story as an example, I've seen in a few different iterations over the past 2 months.
Oh, and
that's just awesome. That's where art really, rising waters lift all ships, right? That's where these individuals are coming together either to work on a new project together. They admire each other's talents, and so they're splintering off and working on something great. Awesome. If I can be the nexus for those interactions, that's
you obviously are. I mean, it's like you've planted a garden and now it's getting out of control in a good way.
That's a good metaphor. Well, yeah, it's yielding good crops.
Yeah. But it's like not to that same degree, but just through Instagram and some other places, just from seeing people, we're posting this and that, the Kickstarter stuff. You just I've come into contact with people I would have never come in contact with had it not been for this. So that was something that is kind of interesting and fun to watch on its own. Also productive.
That's a really good point, Max. And that was one of the things I thought about early on. Was I had a brand identity associated with the logo and the look and feel, but I thought, that's very sterile. That's my look. That's my vision for this project. But this project isn't about me. So what I said early on through email to all the 175 creators was, here's the logo, here's the books, here's the assets. Go.
Yeah.
Have fun. Play. Put the book in a volcano, put it at the bottom of the ocean, throw it on Mars. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Your audience, your friends, your family, your friends, your loved ones know your voice. They don't want to hear my marketing speak.
Yeah.
So have at it. And a few of the creators really have embraced that.
Oh yeah, I've seen
awesome.
some interesting stuff that people have done. Yeah.
And I mean, it's all across the spectrum, and I wholeheartedly adore that. Whereas, more of like a sort of homogenized corporate project would never want you to play around with.
Oh no, you couldn't do that. No.
And I was like, have at it. Like, deconstruct the logo, break it apart, do whatever you want. I don't care.
Right.
That's the essence of this project. Is it? You have your voice. I want your voice to shine. And so early on, I started doing these Meet the Miscreant profiles.
Yeah.
Where every day on social media, I would take the headshots, and people would send, part of the submission process was, submitting a bio and your social and all that. Not your social security number, your social media.
That's already out there. Don't worry about that.
Right. And like headshots if you got in and stuff like that. So that originally I thought, I'll put that all in the book and it'll make a really nice sort of appendix, all these bios. But then, that's 175 people. That's going to be like a 50-page appendix of bios. It's like not realistic. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I was like, great. Let's give everybody their little moment in the sun type of thing. And so I started posting on social, and that fed its way actually into the Kickstarter page. You scroll down, you'll see like all of the creators. I gave them really kind of. It was an opportunity for me to kind of riff on each of the creators, to kind of play with their bio, use their photo, and spotlight on everyone, because there's such a diversity behind this entire roster. Yeah. Like, you'll scroll through, if you scroll down, you're just like,
I'm trying to get to it.
Every country, there's literally someone from every continent. There's every ethnicity, every race, every gender, everything is here in this book. And it's all across the age spectrum as well.
Yeah.
You've got
you can see some interesting stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Young folks, older folks, all across, some people, they had really great, like, professional headshots. Some were really goofy, like selfies. Yeah. Some people were like, I want to remain anonymous. Here's my cartoon headshot. Like, everybody had their own profile. And that was really cool, because you get to see all of these different creators, every walk of life. And it's awesome, the diversity.
And you see all of the, just the personalities. I kind of liked it because it was it reminded me a bit of a wanted poster. And it was like, it was like, have you seen this person? Right. And
that's right. That's right.
I mean, that probably says more about me than anything else. But that's
wanted poster, milk carton.
Or milk cartons would have, something like, just like, But I to me, that's kind of what was appealing when I first saw these. I was going through them all, and it was just like, wow, okay. And again,
and then they just keep going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and you're like, wow, this is insane. What a lineup.
And you can definitely again, just see the variety of personalities, which is just stunning to me. I mean, it's just like, like I said, it's just like everybody's in there, and you don't know what you're going to get from any of these people until you get it.
That's right. But I will tell you what, every single face on here has performed. Every single submission from this whole entire roster has something that I personally think is exceptional.
Yeah.
Now you have to take my word for it, but
right. Well, you're the vision.
I've been around the block or two, and it is fantastic. There is really powerful work in this anthology. I really, truly feel as part of the personal joy I've gotten out of this project, Max, is that while I didn't know most of these people at all before this project ever started, I have been probably the most fortunate in the respect that I've got to play in each of their individual sandboxes, right?
Right.
And part of doing the graphic design, the editing, and the production in InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop and putting this whole monstrosity together has afforded me the opportunity to kind of get my fingerprints and my DNA on everybody's work, right? To different varying degrees.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
a comic might come in and it's fully, completely composed and needs very little from me other than, you know, threshold contrast balancing for print readiness. But otherwise, it's good to go. But
Right.
then, you know, because what's really important to me is the user, the reader's experience at the end of the day. Things like poetry and fiction just can't live flat on the page. Some can because they're designed that way.
Right.
So, and because this is a visual experience, I really got to have a lot of fun. And I've heard nothing but overwhelmingly positive praise and feedback from the creators whose stories and poems I've graphic designed, right? I've added like really cool border treatments or inserted little graphical elements that elevate their story so that it feels like a produced work of art
Right.
rather than just a short story on the page. And you can see examples of that if you scroll up a little bit, Max, back to some of those, just to kind of have a visual for what I'm talking to. Go up to the spreads, the book spreads.
There we go.
Yes, so here you go. Here's some good examples. Scroll up a little bit more. So here, yeah, you get to see examples of like this first shot is a poem on the black, but then it's a poem, and that one is called I can't see it from here. It's the superposition one. Yeah, so it's a really cool poem about science.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like all these waveforms in the illustration.
Yeah,
If you scroll
yeah,
a little bit further, you'll see like Nader's story there, The Thirsty Toad. Like it has really cool graphic elements and art inserts.
Yeah.
Elements that elevate the story so that you're not just getting a 500-word flash fiction piece that's just black on white.
Right.
Every page is curated, designed, produced.
Now you did all
create
of that.
all of that.
Yeah.
All of that.
Wow.
Yeah, all of that.
Now is that
Either
that
I
what you
drew
do
it
for a living,
myself.
or is that what?
Yeah, I mean, I
Have
do
you been
graphic
trained
design.
in it?
Not-
I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you're coming from, writing or art or
Yeah.
what have you, but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an artist and writer, not as my career,
yeah,
but it's something I've always done my whole life.
right,
But through the last 5 years of working with some very talented artists on graphic novels and comic books and things of that nature, I've really honed a lot of my digital skills,
mm-hmm.
especially in InDesign and Illustrator. So I can do a lot of like cool vector stuff and do some really nice design. Like that picture of like the little knotted, twisted rope above right there. Like, I just drew that on my tablet and then brought it over and put it in directly into the InDesign layout with like a really cool border treatment with a lot of different paint brushes. So I do graphic design and have been doing it pretty almost daily for like probably the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's something that is really important to me as sort of the aesthetic element.
No, I totally understand that.
Production.
Yeah.
So what we have here then is you really get a book that from a value proposition standpoint, you're getting your money's worth.
Sure.
Every page really feels like a work of art. This one right here, you see, you've got this Rossetti painting, which is, public domain, 17th century Renaissance art, Rossetti painting. This is a poem submitted by Chavella about Rossetti's artwork. So it only made sense to pull the art in.
Yeah,
to
why
pull
not?
in
Yeah.
really cool paint strokes that make that bottom fence, give it a cool design treatment, and graphic design the structure so that the visual hierarchy, your eyes move down through the painting, then it lands on her poem. You read the poem, which pulls you back up into the painting. And so I'm thinking about that, and it's almost like I'm having sort of like a little psychic dialogue with the creator as
Yeah.
I'm. And so when I share this with the creators themselves, they're like, wow,
Yeah.
that is not how I ever pictured my poem to be presented on the page. That is freaking awesome. And that's the experience our readers are going to have. They're going to be flipping through this, and just every page is going to leave them slack-jawed, I think.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. Like for the podcast, when I get stories or even my own writing, like I like to put a little production behind it, whether it's music or whether it's, but you are adding something to it. And, it does produce kind of a new thing. It's like the combination is each part, but it's a new thing. And it does elevate it, like adding music and sounds to things, spoken word, definitely bumps it into something else. Same thing, like the border treatments and the artwork, it feeds off one another, and it creates an energy that just wouldn't be there alone. So that's certainly, some really interesting stuff here that you're doing, and you are getting your hands into the DNA of everything, which is great.
Yeah, and what's really important, though, at every step of that way is I ask myself, is what I'm contributing elevating the experience,
Right.
and honoring the creator? Because I don't want to do anything for me. I don't want me to shine. Like, I want that page.
Right. You just want it to be the best it can be.
And I want the creator to be the spotlight.
Right.
And so that's always top of mind to me, is that it's not, I don't want to supersede what they have created. I'm just elevating it, enhancing it. I'm adding sort of more sensory engagement,
right,
just like you would add sound or graphics or something too. Yeah.
Definitely.
And so it also creates kind of just the expectation that every page is going to be produced to this caliber, that you're getting a really tremendously creative experience for your investment.
You can certainly, and this kind of project can go like, can fill two kind of slots. One, it could be something that you could pick up every day and find something different in. And it can also be something that you could literally take, a stretch of time, whether it's the summer or maybe even a whole year, and just go the whole way through and enjoy it kind of both ways, So
and that's been a very important part of the process for me in putting together the book holistically. Was I know that there's those two types of readers: one who want to go linearly from page 1 to page 700,
right?
And then there's others who it's going to be a coffee table book that they pick up, they just open it up, and they just jump in wherever they land.
Exactly.
And both are completely valid ways to experience the anthology, to experience Miscreant. For those that move through it linearly, it's really important for me to create an experience where everything feels unique. So when I'm orchestrating the table of contents, you don't have comic back to back with comic. You don't have poem back to back with poem. So that there is sort of ebbs and flows also, that there's that abrasion I mentioned earlier. Right. There's things that are going to spike, and then there's going to be cool offs, and then there's going to be spikes, emotional spike, whether it's anger or it's lust or it's desire or it's humor. That's one thing that I don't really touch on too much when I'm talking about Miscreant Anthology, is this book's funny as hell. Like, there is a lot of just great cartoonists, wisecracks, Far Side like antics, right? Larson antics. Like there's a lot of humor in this as well as being edgy and raw and dangerous and emotionally resonant and impactful. It's also fun.
Yeah, it's like that you're saying, like Mad Magazine or Crumb or something like that, where you get this, there's humor in the darkest places. So it's like, you get that, and that's kind of where the energy is. But I did want to ask you about that, like, so, putting this together, how did you, was it just like mojo, like, okay, well, this kind of goes with this, or this could go after that? Like, did you have a design going in, or just variety?
Variety more so than design, because up until I had started working on the design, layout, and production before the submission period ended, because I'm the type of person that I can't wait till the 11th hour and try to like pull everything off. Right. It just creates too much stress and anxiety. And this is a project that I didn't want to be resentful towards. So I needed to work on it every step of the way. So as things got approved and creators were notified, like, you're in, congrats. I had that sort of lined up, and I would just kind of dogpile it into my InDesign file. Right. And then I started, as I would go through everybody's pieces, I was kind of like, oh, this, it's like one of those like find the nut games. Like I was like, this probably works better here. Right, and then I would re-engage the new piece and be like, oh, wow, that really, I need to move that a little bit later in the experience. And so it was happening kind of organically, the order of operations, so to speak.
Sure.
And then once I had all of the sum total of all the final submissions, once the submission period ended and the doors were closed, and I knew this is everything that's going in the book, I could really fine tune and pull those levers. I was like, this is a really, really strong piece. I want to lead with this.
Right.
This is a really like emotionally resonant downturn. So let's put this here. And so I started thinking like about beats, almost like music.
Right. Yeah.
Like where am I ramping things up? Where do I need, after something really raw, like I need to cool down, and I need to put something funny in just to kind of take the levity off, or add some levity. I mean, and so I didn't necessarily have a clear vision. The anthology told me.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of like, I totally understand what you mean by that. Cause there is that, that idea of putting it together loosely as it comes along so that you don't feel overwhelmed, which is often how I feel. But, and then there's that fine tuning, because you can totally change the feeling of something one way or another, depending on what comes first and what comes second. And it all depends on, like you said, like what you want, what your kind of overall feeling is. And you got to really do it the way you would perceive it. I mean, because the way I look at things is like, if I'm being true to myself, that comes across in one way or another, and other people are going to, they're either going to like it or not, but I think more than likely they will like it more than if you're trying to second guess everything, in some kind of scientific formula. It's just not gonna work.
Well, yeah, and pieces have informed of their pieces, and one particular piece I can think of specifically is we have an artist on board. His name is Helgrim. And his Meet the Miscreant's really crazy. He's got his face painted like a skull or something.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen that.
You've seen the guy, right?
Yeah, I've seen him.
Really, really cool, dark art. It's really awesome. I love it. It's really edgy, but it's very, very like the craftsmanship of his inks and his design is solid. Love it. I just right away, as soon as I saw the submission come in, I'm like, done, in. This is great. I love it. And then we had a writer who submitted a poem, and the poem was partially in German, and it was almost a children's bedtime fairy tale that you would tell your child. But the point of this guy Andrew Kohler's submission was that it was he was playing around with sort of the phonetics of the German tongue and telling this bedtime story to his daughter, and it had to do with like monkeys or something like that, and it was like beautiful but kind of eerie in the way it was presented. And so Helgrim had submitted this really kind of sort of demonic, like wolf creature, like really crazy, almost like the scariest version of Little Red Riding Hood you can imagine, right? And it was cool. And when I read Andrew's submission, I immediately saw that wolf being adjacent to it. So I put those two pieces, which are very different in design, intent, theme, but it made sense together. And then I went to Andrew and I was like, look, I'm putting you next to this. And he's like, I love it. That's awesome. Like that elevates the fear tactic in my poem with that. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Hey.
And it was like this organic thing where separately they're both great pieces, but their unity as a spread is so absurd that it makes each one better.
Right.
The terrifying wolf monster on one side, adjacent to this almost cuddly poem, the cuddly poem that has terrifying hints next to the scary wolf monster is elevated. So they each have this dichotomy that lifts each other. And so that has happened through this book as I've been working on it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And even in the sample on the spread right here that you have on the page, you've got Madame Melva, and she's done this like Shakespeare with a little heart on one side. And then you've got Nader's Thirsty Toad story to the right of it. And above it, you've got Mario Cow's splash page of a woman dealing with the stress of social media on the left. And then you've got Charnel Burton's Unmade story, which is about the breakdown of those types of things. So like they are two creators, completely separate, but intentionally put together because there's a weird interlaced fusion between the two feet. Pieces.
Yeah,
that made sense to me in my little twisted brain.
No, I get it, and that again, that like we were saying before, that sort of juxtaposition just adds another level that brings out the best in both things and creates a meaning all of its own. And I do agree, like the idea of, I don't know, I guess there are people out there that are so planned out in their mind, but I found through art and music and writing that some of the best things come as sort of a synchronicity, just odd coincidences or meaningful coincidences that pop up, and maybe you just notice them because the time is right or whatever, but there's something to that, and I'll never figure it out, but there is something to that, kind of that feeling your way along, I think.
Yeah, I mean, working on this book has been like the coolest jam session ever, right?
Yeah.
Because with 175 of my close friends, like just getting to rock out with their particular slice of pie and make it better for its inclusion in the anthology, slamming it against something that just has a cool timbre or has a different beat that just makes them feel like more of a mambo, or they have their own tango, and that's kind of cool. It's been a lot of fun. And the biggest challenge now over the last few weeks was just trying to get eyeballs on it, and
Right.
launching the Kickstarter because, it's a very competitive landscape out there, and, just trying to get people's eyeballs on this while, at the end of the day, the Kickstarter is serving a purpose of allowing us the funds to print the books to get into the backers' hands.
Right.
Plain and simple. I mean, this is a very retail operation in that respect. Like, we put up the Kickstarter, you buy the book. If you buy the book, we have the funds to print it. We print the book and we send the book to you. And that's it. Anything left over gets divided amongst the creators. Simple. Very simple logistically.
And you did kind of well. Yeah, I mean, did you expect to do this well? Or what did you expect? Or didn't know?
No, I wasn't quite sure. I knew that we had sort of like a numerical advantage with having 175 creators. You would think
True.
at least 175 creators would be able to bring 175 people to the table. So, but I think with a project like this, you have different levels of like marketing skills, different levels of like social sharing skills. And, you would think, and I've had some people opportunistically reach out to me like, oh, we can help you with your Kickstarter campaign type,
Sure.
Those leeches out there. And I was like, well, no, we got this, man. We don't really need the help. Like these people, these creators, they've got their audiences and they will come. And we don't need to chase a monetary success because there's so many people on board this project that logistically speaking, the slice of the pie for everyone is relatively small. So it's we know nobody's getting rich. What it is with this project is we are getting the work out. That's what matters. At the end of the day, whether I have $1 in my pocket or $100 in my pocket doesn't matter.
Right.
Like what matters is if I can get this out to 124 backers and 100 copies of this book out into the world, or 10 copies of this book, or 10,000 copies of the book. The same love, TLC, work, process, all goes into it, no matter how successful it is.
Right. Did the initial goal, would that then have been enough to print the whatever? I mean, like I'm not sure how all this works with the Kickstarter. Like as far, because like you'll see some, like I've looked around and you see some that are way over the goal, and then you see some that never make anything. And how much research did you have to do, I guess is what I'm asking you to
I mean, like
come
I
up with
this is the goal here is really arbitrary. I'll be 100% honest. Like there are campaigns on Kickstarter where they are literally trying to fund manufacturing of a board game or something, right? Or their movie or their album or whatever it is. And they have hard costs and they have a legitimate like goal that they need to reach before they could even begin.
Right.
We're not in that position. We're beginning regardless. Like we could still produce this book without Kickstarter. Like it doesn't matter, right? So Kickstarter requires you to have a goal. I wanted to put a goal in that seemed realistic, of course.
Right.
But at the same time, I didn't want to put in our goal is $1, right? I mean, like we want to have something that at least feels realistic. But that's why none of my messaging has really been about like we're 4x our goal, because the goal is arbitrary. Because we're not trying to build inventory of books. I don't need a bunch of Miscreants sitting around my house. We're producing books based on demand.
Exactly.
Simple.
Okay, I get it.
So, yeah. So if we get 1,000 backers tomorrow, then we print 1,000 books. That's great. If we have 124 backers like we do right now at the end of the next 9 days, then we print 124 books. That's it. Simple.
So you got 9 more days for the Kickstarter, and then what's the next step?
Well, what happens is the Kickstarter ends. We'll know the total number of digital copies, paperbacks, hardcovers, etc., deluxe edition that we're going to order from the printer. And hopefully that number will be really large. That would be great for everyone. I think the more books that we can get printed, the more backers we get, means that every creator on board this project just gets that much more eyeballs on the collective work.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So then we send the files off to the printer. It typically takes, just here's a little peek behind the curtain running a Kickstarter campaign. It takes Kickstarter 2 to 3 weeks to pay out the funds that you've received from your pledges. Not all pledges go through, right? Yeah. People have failed credit cards. Some people back out the last minute. Some people dispute the charges. Like, there's always some little shenanigans from the small percentage of the backers that doesn't actually convert into an actual sale per se. That just happens. Kickstarter takes 9% between Kickstarter and their credit card processing partner Stripe. They take, so just looking at that number, you know that $1,163 of that is off the table. Right. That's Kickstarter's profit. That's what they get for giving you this platform. That's their share. They take their cut. Then you get taxed. Then you, once all the credit cards have gone through, they give the funds to the creator. That's what we will use to place the print order. And our print partner is Mixam. I did an announcement a couple of days ago, which is really awesome. Mixam is a online. They're based in the UK, but they have offices all through the US as well. They're a large print house, but they really specialize in like self-publishing and indie DIY. Okay. And I've had a good working relationship with them with Miscreant Media on the last 3 or 4 books I've done. So they understand my needs, right, which is to produce a massive 700-page book, which some print houses can't handle. It's too big. And that's awesome. So I needed a print partner that could come to the table and commit, we can fulfill the scope of this book. And so we've got them already lined up. They know that we're coming. In fact, they've been so excited about this project that they've started to promote Miscreant Anthology as of 2 days ago on their stuff, on their socials. Nice. As our print partner, which is great. And so then we send all the final print assets to the printer. They print the books. That can take probably between 2 to 4 weeks to get those books printed. So those will be the trade paperbacks and the hardcovers. Then they get shipped to me. And then I get the fun job of putting those in boxes and mailing them to everybody.
Oh, there you go. Which
is going to be nuts. But I love that. I love it. That's actually my favorite part. I love when the freight shipment comes in and the pallet crashes down and it's like, here's your books. And that's what it'll be like. It'll be hundreds and hundreds of pounds of Miscreant Anthology on my driveway.
Well, you better start lifting weights. So
I mean, that's so fun though, because I get to personalize the books, and I as I'm packing them, and I get to shrink wrap them and bubble wrap them and put them in the box. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Nice. Well, that's fun. Then are you going on vacation after that or what?
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to take a much needed rest. This has been a very all-consuming project.
I can bet.
It has really been something that has been, for the last 2 months especially, something that I wake up thinking about, I go to bed thinking about. Every day, not only am I working on the book itself, but I'm producing online media, social media ads. I'm producing content. I'm engaging the creators. I'm engaging prospective backers. It has been a all-consuming project, but I've enjoyed every moment of it. So that's cool to me.
Well,
I don't mind the work.
You can tell from the production value of all the stuff you do. You can tell that you enjoy it, right? It's like that energy comes through. And I think that's that also is what a lot of people pick up on. It's like, yeah, like I got that too. I want to do that too. I want to be part of that. And I think it's a tremendous job. Anything you want to leave everybody thinking about?
Well, I mean, hopefully listening to this great conversation with Max, your interest is further piqued. There is definitely a reward tier that's right for you. We specifically did this after taxes so that if you had your refunds, you'd be able to jump on it. Right. If you didn't, you'll still jump on it because you're going to realize what a cool project. You don't want to miss out on it.
Right.
And, the paperback, it's super reasonable. And we also, it's $75, I think, for the paperback. It's 700, almost 750 pages. Like,
yeah.
If you think about it, if you're a comic book reader, you're familiar with Marvel's Epic collections, right?
Sure.
They're like 300-page graphic novels. They retail for $49. They used to retail for $49.99. Now they're $59.99 because Marvel used this convenient opportunity to jack the price up. It's $60 book for a Marvel Epic collection. This is almost 3 Epic collections combined, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the value is there. You're going to thoroughly love having Miscreant on your shelves.
Oh, I can't wait.
People to back it. I personally love hardcovers. I'm a big hardcover nut, so
yeah,
I've got that lined up for my shelf. I've got my hardcover already. It's got its spot ready to go.
I got mine, and I want to thank you for the project and for your great conversation and getting to talk to you. I mean, I know we've emailed back and forth a bit, but again, you find these. At least for me, I find these people that I'm meeting, like you and Gabe and a bunch of it. It's sort of like I'm meeting somebody that's in tune with what I'm thinking and the way I'm going. And like I said, you can get discouraged because if you're just looking in the mainstream glossy world of Target and all that stuff, you're not going to find that. And it's really refreshing when I do find people that I'm like, maybe I'm not as alone as I thought I was, but we're just we're and you're bringing it all together here, so I can't thank you enough.
Well, I think I think that our watchers of this are really going to enjoy reading Max's story inside Lullaby. It's really cool.
Hope it doesn't put him to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think it's going to put them to sleep. I think they're going to have some great emotional impacts with it. I think it's great, and it was nice to have your inclusion in there. I know that you've worked with Gabe on the past on comics, and originally you guys were going to submit a comic together, but then you sort of each did your own thing, which was cool. And so it's nice to see. In fact, there's a few submissions in here, which is writing from artists. Art from writing, which is cool. It's like Austin Ackert, who is a local artist here in town. I don't know if you know Austin. He submitted a piece which was very divergent from anything that he does. Like, he's very talented artist. He does a lot of work with on trading cards, and he's done some deals with Topps, and he has his own comic books. And he's very kind of a gonzo artist. He's really crazy, but he loves poetry.
Yeah.
So he took his art stylings and submitted a poem, but it's all visually artistic poem. And I love that because it was like Miscreant afforded him the opportunity to do something that was outside of his traditional lane that sells when he goes to cons and when he does table events.
Right. Yeah.
Here was a platform for him to do something else that's a little divergent.
Yeah. And I find people like that all the time. It's like there's so many people I come into contact with, that are into writing or they're into music, but then they're also into photography. They're also, there seems to be, and I never really realized that too much, I don't think, before, but in the last few years, I've really come to see, like there's a lot of people out there. One of the big people, I think of is Andy Summers, a guitarist for the Police. He's a pretty accomplished photographer. And, you think, wow, like people just don't have this one thing that they do, even if they're just known for that, they have other interests, and it's fun to see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really cool. It was awesome to see, like, it would have been safe for us to publish Max and Gabe's story. But then to separate and have Gabe do his own thing and Max do his own thing, and then those both get in, that's cool. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I was waiting to see. I was like, if he gets in, I hope I get in.
That's right. And everybody got in on their merits. I have to say it that way. Like I 100%. I feel like everybody had earned their spot at the table, so to speak. But if I could expand the table, put in some extra leads, I would have. But I pushed the limits of this book as far as I can, and that's 700 pages. After that, this book just becomes untenable.
Right. You have to have a pedestal for it.
So that just means that there is room for Miscreant Volume 2 down the road.
I would hope so, and that's what Gabe and I are banking on. We can get something going for that. But again, gotta thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And
thank you.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Eric Williamson of Miscreant Media. Head on over to Kickstarter at kickstarter.com/projects/miscreant media/miscreant anthology and pick your level of support, but don't miss out. You've been listening to the Atomic Voodoo Lounge. I'm Maxwell Vegas and hope to see you back soon. Remember, AtomicVoodooLounge.com. Copyright 2026, Heavy Sixer Productions, LLC.